My name is David Daniel Ball, and these are the headlines for Tuesday, the 3rd of February, 2009. Free insulation as Rudd tries to revive the economy. Get rid of IMF G7 to save the world economy, says Paul Keating. First Google Earth, now Google Ocean. Why Roy is a risk. Interest rates to hit 45-year low. Miranda Kerr gets steamy for Orlando. Emma Watson confused by sexy label. Protesters throw shoe at Chinese PM. Passerby kills dog as it attacks woman. Graffiti girl jailed for 3 months. Woman charged after baby left in car. Northern Territory intervention to go before the United Nations. Heavy snow brings Britain to a standstill. And in comments, airlines prove customers have no protection. With consumers already being left behind by the government's handling of the economy, our airlines are also giving customers a raw deal, writes Alan Jones. From Tim Blair, Insulinomics. Worried about Australia's sudden $115 billion revenue loss? Be calm, people. Kevin Rudd, lately disowning previously held economic beliefs, will solve our problems with ceiling insulation. Hey, at least he delivered change. Star letter in the February edition of Viz. I don't know why everyone is so pleased about America getting a black president. Zimbabwe's had one for years. Still, they do believe. May the 27th will mark the 2000th day since the fabled fake turkey of idiot legend was born. Rock climbers. Mark stain on the modern British royalty. Over the years I've met kings, princesses, dukes and all the rest, and none of them were as hung up on precedents as the aristocracy. A decade or so back, Sting had to issue a formal apology because at one of his big Save the Rainforest banquets at his country pile, he committed the ghastly social faux pas of seating Jules Holland of the band Squeeze next to some no-name session musician. Burning Man. Marlena Gangi interviews Oregon eco-terrorist and loser Jeff Lewers, due to be released from an Oregon prison later this year. When Jeff Free Lewers and Craig Critter Marshall drove away from Romania Chevrolet in the early morning hours of June the 16th, 2001 after igniting the wicks of 2 one-gallon milk jugs filled with Coleman fuel, they could not have known that this action would come to significantly alter their lives. These boys aren't very imaginative. On with the interview. MG, what are you most looking forward to upon your release? What are you most apprehensive about? JL, there are so many things that I'm excited about. No More Walls is a big one. I think that within my first few weeks I'll find myself camped deep in the woods reconnecting with nature. And trying to forget about Big Vern in the showers, no doubt. JL, my biggest challenge, I think, is going to be living indoors and paying rent. The living indoors part shouldn't be too much trouble. MG, what moved you to follow through with the arson at Romania? Did you feel that there was any other alternative at all to raise awareness about global warming? And what was that running through your mind when you set flame to the incendiary? Our world is being physically and geographically altered by greenhouse gases that we are putting out into the environment. So Jeff thought he'd improve things by setting fire to a bunch of Chevrolets. Read on to learn that things have not changed much since the time of kings, that Obama's America is still a capitalist imperialist monster, and that Jeff and Critter are friends again. President doesn't care. At least 42 people are dead and possibly 1 million are without power and water, while their president hosts cocktail parties and watches the Super Bowl. Bush has already blown it this time. The media will tear him apart. Apparently Bush is no longer president. It's some new guy instead. Boy, is he ever going to be in trouble. Weather has been fixed. It once snowed in Robert Fisk's hometown of Maidstone sometime during his childhood. It didn't snow much in the following years, which Fisk took to be a sign that the weather was broken. Well, take a look, Robert. Snowed today in Maidstone. All as it should be. And an update, England's Super Snowden comes mere days after a couple of sad polar bears were floated down the Thames to raise awareness of climate change. PUF fury. Indonesian Islamic hardliners have called a ban on international organizations, the Rotary Club and the Lions Club, saying they're part of a Zionist conspiracy, report said today. Another view. Raja Julie Antony of the Mafi Institute, a moderate Islamic group, told the Jakarta Post there was no evidence that the Lions or Rotary clubs posed a threat to Islam. And from Andrew Bolt, not stolen but chosen. Faith Thomas, who plays cricket for Australia, explains how she became a member of what others call the stolen generations. Faith Thomas: nursing's taken me everywhere, sports taken me everywhere, you know? Everywhere I've wanted to go. All Mum knew what to do was to cook in kitchens, pub kitchens, and she'd say, why bring that girl up in the environment? So she rang Sister Hyde up from Colebrook and she popped up to Copley, picked me up and Mum up, brought me down to Corn, and Mum said to Sister Hyde, you know, this is how you'll be your child. I haven't named her, you give her a name. I loved it. Yeah, it gave me opportunities that I wouldn't have had, you know, if Mum, and I really appreciate Mum, you know, for doing that. So I ended up with 3 wonderful mums, Sister Hyde, Sister Anna, my natural mum, who didn't, you know, who kept in touch with me. She had to learn how to read and write so that she could, you know, write to keep that contact. Visited every other year, so I suppose I was one of the lucky ones. I don't consider myself a stolen generation. I consider myself a chosen generation. And if you look at her, she is really beautiful. Let them first predict next month's weather. Climate Change Minister Penny Wong and her fellow alarmists claim they saw last week's heatwave in Victoria and South Australia coming. Forgiving Obama for Bush's sins. George Bush was a war criminal for permitting such things, and Hollywood made films flaying him for it. But Barack Obama is the Messiah and is in no doubt right to do what he thinks he must. Under executive orders issued by Obama recently, the CIA still has the authority to carry out what are known as renditions, secret abductions and transfers of prisoners to countries that cooperate with the United States. And watch the Bush haters turn on a dime. For example, under Bush, Human Rights Watch insisted the US permanently discontinue the CIA's rendition program, but under Obama, Human Rights Watch concedes that under limited circumstances, there's a legitimate place for renditions. Not a word of the scorcher just over the horizon. More billions to go. Kevin Rudd reveals the centerpiece of his plan to rescue the economy. More than 2.2 million owner-occupied homes will qualify for free ceiling insulation under the Prime Minister's plan, an element of a multi-pronged economic stimulation package expected to be announced tomorrow. The best that can be said for it is that at least the bats won't disappear in the pokies. Africa dictator to lead. His own people can't vote for him, but fellow African leaders do. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi took the reins of the 53-nation African Union at the summit today. Mr. Gaddafi elected in a closed-door vote at the summit in the Ethiopian capital. Nor is Africa's shame limited to the fact that Gaddafi is unelected. He's also a primitive. Hoping to burnish his standing, he recently had a group of traditional leaders name him the King of Kings of Africa and brought an entourage of 7 local monarchs dripping in gold jewelry with him to the summit. Where's the applause? I'm sure this man will be made a media hero too. A protester who threw a shoe at Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao at Cambridge University overnight surrendered peacefully, police and security staff said. I mean, what's the difference other than he threw his shoe at a leader of an authoritarian regime which oppresses people, not liberates them? Foreign influence. Why do we allow such large donations in the first place? New South Labour has washed its hands of one of the country's most generous political donations from a company linked to Hong Kong gambling billionaire Stanley Ho, while accepting another $400,000 directly from the man himself. How can they blow hot so often? Britain's Met Office peered into the forecasting models last September and predicted the Met Office forecast for coming winter suggests it is once again likely to be milder than average. Rudd disowns the economics he once claimed. Just 9 months ago, Kevin Rudd thought John Howard's economic policies were so good that he boasted Labour thought of them first. Kirby shows it's good he's gone. Michael Kirby shows in his final judgment all the qualities that made him appalling justice of the High Court. Story shot. More claims of Israeli atrocities in the weekend Australian. 3 witnesses have claimed that Israeli soldiers shot in cold blood 2 civilians who had their hands in the air on the second day of the Israeli offensive in Gaza. But what the witnesses said to the journalist is very different from what they said to a human rights group.